When we get into arguments with people, it is very easy for us to lose control of our emotions or get angry. Whether it is with our friends, family, strangers, or especially in relationships, arguments can be very emotionally taxing and exhausting. When you lose an argument or feel like you lost, you are often left feeling misunderstood, embarrassed, and angry. Even worse, if our opponent knows that we feel this way, they might derive a feeling of satisfaction from our self-consciousness. However, what if there was a way of becoming so confident and articulate that it becomes virtually impossible to lose an argument? Winning an argument is very much about how you are perceived. When you understand and integrate certain foundations of human psychology and communication, it can make you an extremely difficult adversary to defeat in any form of debate. These tactics are integral to winning any debate or argument, which is really just an aggressive variation of persuasive conversation. Debating or arguing with someone can be a very emotionally charged dynamic. Because of this, it is important to understand that it is the perception that you give off that matters, just as much as the substance of your argument. When you leverage the areas of your speech, delivery, and attentiveness to maximum effect, that alone can exponentially increase your chance of winning the argument. Let's dive in and explore 6 ways to win any argument. First, let's start with the most obvious one. Despite how obvious this one is, people still often overlook this to their detriment. It is to make sure you do your research. Too many people have ideologically shallow arguments, and just by differentiating yourself from them, you place yourself at a great advantage. Understand your opinion on a matter and why and how you have that opinion. Brutally deconstruct your thoughts the way your opponent would. You can try to think of all possible counter-arguments to your own argument. You can even go as far as to imagine yourself in the shoes of your opponent. To make your argument as powerful as possible, you need to self-analyze, question, and challenge any possible contradictions or inconsistencies in your thought processes. Doing so will prepare you to address any questions and challenges that your opponent may bring up, because now there is a much higher chance that you have thought of their counter-arguments already. Number 2 is to practice and preferably perfect your speaking skills. Knowing how to articulate your thoughts properly and translate them smoothly into words is a skill that isn't just advantageous to winning arguments, but it quite literally benefits every area of your life that requires human interaction. One great way of practicing your speaking skills is by talking to yourself. Speak out loud in front of a mirror or even record your speech and listen to yourself later on. It will help you identify errors in your speech pattern that make you sound less convincing. When people are arguing with you, they are particularly sensitive to your body language, posture, and eye contact. And speaking of body language, that leads to number 3. Maintain a confident, assertive, but calm body language and frame when arguing. This is easier said than done, of course, especially when it comes to something as emotionally charged as an argument. But if you have done the first 2 ways described earlier of having developed proper speaking skills and a well-nuanced and researched position for your argument, it will become much easier and natural to portray confidence. Your confidence can even deliver a psychological advantage, as your opponent will sense from your composed presentation that you are someone who knows what they are talking about. Again, it is all about perception. Always regulate your emotions. It is important to not get defensive during an argument because it signals that you are allowing your emotions to get the better of you. It also eliminates the productivity of the argument. Uncontrolled negative emotion is the kryptonite to your argument, even if you are the correct person in the argument. It gives off the perception that you are not logical, and contrary to how it plays in your mind, it will give an overall image of weakness on your end. This transitions smoothly into number 4, which is to not let insults trigger or bother you. When personal insults are used in an argument, it is a sign that they don't have anything else to say. It is what is known as an ad hominem, which is a type of logical fallacy where an argument attacks a person's character, traits, or circumstances rather than addressing the substance of the argument itself. When someone insults you, it is always more impactful to respond in a way that their insult doesn't matter rather than to the insult itself. This will nudge the psychological advantage even more in your favor, as it is demonstrating to the opponent that even their insults don't affect you. Number 5 is to always ask clarification questions. When you ask clarifying questions, it forces your opponent to consider their own position and any details that they may have left out or not considered. It changes the dynamic of the conversation from an offensive position to a defensive one for your opponent. It also reveals potential weaknesses and loopholes in your opponent's argument. Because people often think they understand their opinions better than they actually do, many arguments end up being built on wrong ideas. People speak confidently, even though they don't really know much about the topics. By asking them to explain more, you can also identify areas of weakness in their argument, and by extension, you can discover just how shallow or deep their depth of understanding of their own opinion is. By extension, a great way to ask them to clarify is to use their exact same words back in your response. And lastly, at number 6, it is important to recognize when there's no point in continuing the argument. It is not an uncommon case for someone who is overly aggressive or combative in an argument to be biased and deluded to the point where they are not thinking or listening clearly. Usually, the more insecure the person is, the more severe this turns out to be. In such cases, it is important to remain calm and recognize that this person has actually defeated him or herself. If the person has any kind of self-awareness, they will realize later on that their reaction was not in their best interest and may likely feel embarrassed, ashamed, or idiotic for the way they behaved. These are all solid ways to not just win an argument, but to present yourself as someone articulate, well thought out, and concise. It also leaves room for mutual understanding and persuading your opponent to find common ground in your argument, which is really the best way to quote-unquote win. If you have managed to convince your opponent of your thoughts, with neither of you losing control or getting angry, then that is the best victory of all. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell for future videos. Until next time, stay aware, stay empowered, and remember, knowledge is your greatest defense against the unseen forces that shape our world.